The question goes, what recourse does one have when building plans differ from what the purchaser was originally shown at the time of obviously, signing off on those building plans? Cilna?
And the thing is, when does the actual thing actually differ from the plans that you've seen? The thing is, I've been a property lawyer for quite some time, and I think I've seen more building plans than the typical person, not closely as many building plans as an architect or a builder would see, but I've seen quite a few. And to be quite honest, as creative as I am and as much as I can see things that doesn't exist yet, a building plan and my hair color doesn't sit next to each other. To take a 2D sort of drawing and picture it in reality, even the little things on the plans like the door, which side does it open? And you're wondering, why are they building these little half-circular things? It's a door. And it's things like that. Bruno, I'm so glad you're laughing, because that's exactly, a building plan actually doesn't tell you much unless you are trained. So I have a good friend that's an architect, and every time I see plans from an architect, I always think, just tell me with your mouth what you see and show me sort of in a 3D, the door is going to be there. It's going to open to the inside of the room. Don't draw funny little pictures. And why I'm starting at that point is, I think there's a massive risk when buying off plan to think you're buying something when in fact you're buying something else. If you are not trained in reading building plans and you don't really understand what it's going to look like and what are these 2D images going to translate to in a 3D building environment, I think you do have a massive risk of buying something and you're picturing something in your head, and then it's like a lot of things in our lives where we picture something and then the reality seems massively distorted and you're disappointed, when in fact the reality has been the reality all along. I hope I'm making sense in a way. So I think when it comes to buying off plan, it's almost like, I mean, Bruno, you and I talk about this often. When we do inspections, property inspections, before you put in an offer to a property, our advice is always get a property inspector, a professional property inspector, to get into the roof, see if all the nooks and stuff is actually good, that there isn't termites, that the foundation is good. We walk through a property, and even as property lawyers, that's litigated on massive defects in properties, even you and I will miss quite a few things walking through a property, even more so on plans. So I wouldn't jump, well, I think our viewers and you guys know by now, I won't easily jump to litigation. I would just quickly stop and assess the position, because if you start making demands to a seller and you are in the wrong, it's going to be a waste of money. So my starting point would be to get an architect to assess the situation. Get an architect in there to compare the plans to the building. If you made an honest mistake and you bought something without seeing the 3D image in your head, unfortunately, the seller is not in the wrong. If the seller is in the wrong, though, you get an architect out, and really, please, I really want to almost really implore you there to get an architect before you start making demands, just to do a comparison, plan to reality check. And then if it is true that it's not on the plans, your problems on purchasing is the least of your problems, because the plans were authorized by, if it's in a sectional title complex, obviously already was accepted by the Surveyor General. If it is a freestanding unit, the municipality had to approve those plans. So if you're buying off plan and the plans and the reality doesn't match, your chances of getting council compelling demolition is pretty much 100%. And the recourse that you have would be to then either approach the Surveyor General in the context of a sectional title scheme, or the municipality, the local council. And luckily, within, I suppose, the next 24 hours, you're going to know who your wards councillor is. They're already going to point you in the right direction there to the municipality. Bring it to their attention, because this is not just a litigation claiming your hands, reclaiming the purchase price or something like that. It's something that has to be demolished and corrected, because now we're building plans that's not been approved. And remember, unless we're on agricultural land, every single thing that you build, from a little outhouse to adding rooms to your property, has to be on plan. And if it's not on plan and it's not correctly on plan, when you sell the property, you're going to have a massive issue, because no architect, and I'm saying this very boldly, no architect that's worth his salt will sign off on plans that he didn't draw himself and that he doesn't know the foundations and stuff are correct. And very often, if not in all cases, you would not even be able to sell without proper approved plans. So be careful. And the truth is, the chances of a developer building differently, unless it's a dodgy sort of developer, and you guys know, we've all had our run-ins with those. If it's a slightly dodgy developer, okay, cool, then we have much bigger problems. But the chances of a developer that's worth his salt developing something that's not in line with the plans is very, very, very low. So I would start there. I would start on the assessment through an architect. If it is a problem, and it is maybe the developer ended up changing the plans and got council approval, you were not aware of that, then we do sit with a situation where we fall back on the offer to purchase. If there is a clause allowing the developer to make minor changes to the plans during building, then unfortunately you do not have recourse. If there isn't a clause like that, that does allow the developer to work slightly of the plans within obviously council and surveyor general approval, then you sit with a situation where the developer did perform, but it was positive malperformance. Then we place him on terms. In terms of the offer to purchase, he has to either rectify that, and if he doesn't, you can cancel the offer to purchase and you would be able to claim damages. So that's a very long answer, but I must say the statistical chance in my head of this going in that direction is very low. So before you start placing a developer on terms or seller on terms, just make sure he is in fact in breach, and you're not maybe just misunderstanding the plans. And I'm really not saying that you don't understand the plan. It's very complex. I can't read a building plan, honestly, and I've seen a thing or two. So maybe that's the starting point. Bruno, what did I miss?
So typically with the developments we work with, especially in the residential space, so what I typically tend to find is the comparative between commercial and residentials. In the commercial space, the tenant the tenant or the person that it's being developed for normally sets the parameters and specifications quite strictly. Whereas with residential spaces, the developers actually have quite a level of control over how they develop out these properties. So and that's the difficulty, is it depends how it's done. So you can buy things off plan, for instance. You can actually even buy things off plan, buy the land and enter into a building contract with the developer. And like that, it gets built as over a period of time. And your bank, who gives you a building loan, for example, would then pay the developer out in sequence, like little by little. So you'll find in contracts like that, for example, it's a lot easier to keep tabs on what the developer's actually doing, and you can actually prevent payments from being paid out to them by reporting to the bank that there's an issue and that they're not following up the specs. So it depends how far it's been built. But typically you find with building loans, they'll build up to a certain percentage, and then if everything's okay, you do You can tick all the boxes, inspectors go there and everyone's happy, they get paid for it. If, for example, it's in a sectional scheme, you typically don't buy using building loans. So you buy off plan. So you're basically buying a right to something. And by buying a right to something, obviously you haven't actually had sight of it. So it's not tangible, which makes it very difficult to grasp. And going back to Cilna's point, the problem with that is that, you know, a person doesn't understand the implication of what 2 square meters means or 4 square meters means. So, you know, when you're looking at the building plans and it tells you that the bathroom's 4 square meters, you're like, yeah, that's fine, it's 4 square meters. But when you walk into a bathroom that's 4 square meters and you're trying to fit a basin and a toilet in it, you know,
The door's not going to open.
Yeah, the door won't open because you keep getting the toilet bowl. And that's a reality. We see that all the time when it comes to developments. So it is something just to consider. Is, you know, if you're not sure on what it looks like, you're normally supposed to actually the developers normally have advertising material that they would show, and that's how you check your renderings, but you can actually see a proper rendering and get a general idea. Also with residential developers, what you also typically find is that there are a lot of variation allowances. So if, for example, when it comes to things like tiles, if they tell you that they're going to give you X tile, but that tile's not available on the market anymore, there is a great discretion on a lot of these guys to be able to swap out items and make small little variations. But very, very rarely would it be on a structural component like a wall goes here and here and here, and you're facing north, and now all of a sudden you're facing a different direction. That's quite material. And that is something you can take them up on. And it's something that should have been in the building plans. If you knew how to read them, it should have been in the building plans.
Yeah, that's something so important, like the direction the building is facing or something like that. And obviously, if there's an estate agent involved, in terms of the rules from the conduct rules from the EAAB, obviously, you're not allowed to do false marketing. So if it was a purposeful false marketing on behalf of the agent, you do have recourse through the EAAB as well, but that's not going to solve the actual basis of the problem.
Absolutely.
I think this was a long answer, Chris. We surprised you with that one.
Oh, it was a good answer. It was a very good answer. So thank you both for that. And I actually missed the days that you both like had answers for a question. So this is a treat for me, and I'm sure it is a treat for the viewers as well.